Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm kind of glad this isn't the Angelina Jolie movie.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss The Changeling, which released in 1980. From a story by Russell Hunter, with a screenplay by William Gray and Deanna Maddox, and directed by Peter Medak. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows John Russell, played by George C. Scott. He has recently suffered a family tragedy and has decided to sell his apartment and move into a big house in Seattle. Once there, he realizes he's not alone, but starts to investigate what is actually going on and realizes that he's not the only one who has suffered a tragedy.
What is it you want? What do you want from me?
So I said this was based on a story by Russell Hunter, and that means that this was an actual true ghost haunting.
Allegedly.
Now, apparently, he stayed in the Henry Treat Rogers mansion in Denver, Colorado, since been demolished.
Yeah.
And basically, everything that he said that happens is what the screenwriters then went and put in this film.
Oh, right, okay.
But interestingly, the two screenwriters did apparently 6 months of extensive research, looking into all forms of paranormal activity and the research that goes into trying to document these sort of cases.
Yeah.
So I was like, so it's definitely well researched. But part of my brain also goes, maybe it was also the fact that the Amityville Horror came out like a year before this. And the studios were just like, any ghost stories?
Haunted houses, let's go.
Now, I remember seeing this film in my early teens. And I dismissed this. I don't think I ever made it to the end. I thought it was boring, dull, like the ghost wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
But I also blame Tobe Hooper and Steven Spielberg with like the likes of Poltergeist.
Yes.
I'd already seen stuff like Hellraiser.
Yeah.
So, watching horror movies and then going back to something that's really sort of minimalist, in terms of its delivery. You almost think like almost all these haunted house type movies are usually demons.
Yeah.
And so maybe that explains why this film, that is considered quite widely as a pretty damn good film, has kind of gone pretty cult classic style and remained, unnoticed by so many.
Well, this is the thing. It's quite interesting you said that, because as I was getting ready for the review, I was, with the history of horror movies I've gone through, I've seen all types of gory, fucking crazy, black and white, fucking haunted house movies. Like, this one had never kind of appeared on my list. Nobody had really talked about it. So when you had said it was on our list and you had mentioned you'd watched it and you didn't think it was very good, I thought, okay, maybe I'm not going to enjoy it. But what I did find, and, we'll get to talking about it, the experience I had with, gory horror movies, more CGI, special effect horror movies, actually made this one stand out better. Because, this is older. You have to rely more on camera work. You have to rely more on good acting and good script writing instead of just, Terrifier throwing lots of blood and guts at the screen and hoping that it fucking sticks.
Well, I was thinking more like Conjuring or Paranormal Activity, which, have been the dominant ghost sort of movies lately.
I've not watched them because they look shit.
Fair enough.
But at the same time, Peter Medak, I'd seen The Craze.
Yes.
When it came out when I was younger. Like, my mum had rented it. She'd kind of talked to me about, Reggie and Ronnie and what they'd got up to in London at the time. So when this film had been released, she was kind of like, here, you should watch this movie. And yeah, it's pretty damn good, pretty well acted and, camera works pretty well. So The Craze, I thought, hey, that's some backing for The Changeling.
I know I'd seen this director's work in episodes of like Hannibal, the TV series. He's also worked on lots of other TV stuff, but the only other film that popped out was Species 2.
Yeah,
which
isn't great. But then, Species 1 isn't great.
Well,
I do have to say, though, and this is quite interesting, like 3 weeks ago, I'd seen a poster for Zorro the Gay Blade and was like, what the fuck is that? So I'd wikied it. And then realised when I was researching for this film that it was done by the same director. So we might have to throw that one on the list. It looks interesting.
Okay.
But man, George C. Scott.
Yeah.
I
I recognise him straight away from The Exorcist 3.
Oh, hell yeah. Like, Doctor Strangelove.
Yes,
He's great in that. I mean, he was great in Patton. I did love his version. I mean, like, I kind of love all the Christmas Carol versions you can get out there, but the one he does is like he's really intense, and then he can be really quite mellow. Like, he's a really, really great actor. And this fucking opening, man. Whoa, like, the film, like, before the even titles come up, it's him,
New York State, November.
Yeah, him and his wife and his daughter, you know, his wife, played by Jean Marsh, you know, from Return to Oz. They're pushing their car up the road because it's run out of gas or a flat tire or something, you know, and immediately I'm starting to get an ominous feeling. I'm feeling like,
yeah, like when the daughter's just like, "Hey, mummy, let's go have a snowball fight in the road." Well, I mean, on the side.
On the side
of the road. It's like, oh. And, I mean, the film language, like, you only have to see a couple of movies to know when the film's telling you that something ominous is about to happen.
Yeah.
That wide shot, then, of course, the car's coming.
Yeah.
You just know as an audience member what's about to happen. And even though you know it's about to unfold, actually watching the mother and daughter get destroyed under that car.
yeah.
And then the freeze image on the title as our protagonist, John Russell, just looks on in horror.
It just looks on in horror. I mean, because it's a truck that gets, you know, misses another car and then hits their car, which is parked, and then that runs over the people, and you're like, whoa. And then immediately after the titles come, we're now following John walking around. Like, it wasn't obvious at first what he did for a living, but then it starts to drip feed you. You know, he's a musician. He likes to teach classes, you know, and he's really quite well famous as well, from what I gather, because the class that we see him do, he's got loads of people there trying to be in on his lesson. But he's talking to some of his friends as well, and he's saying, like, look, you know, I was in shock at first, and then it seemed to kick in a couple of months later, and I realized that they weren't coming home and they weren't in there, and I was just in this empty house, and I just needed to do something. So one of his friends suggests getting a job in Seattle and working for their campus, and then sets them up because he wanted he says he wants a really big place just to be able to play.
Yeah.
No neighbors, nobody to disturb him. And so then when he gets taken to the big house and he meets Trish Van Devere playing Claire Norman, like, this is what was getting me. Like, I'm not saying that, like, Peter Medak is like the greatest director of all time, obviously not, but some of the camera work shots that he used while going around the house really made me feel like scared.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's also the music or the low camera angle, or the fact that the camera's always moving. You definitely get the sense that you are something in the house watching these intruders come in. And it's, he's been basically leased this house from the Historical Society.
Yeah.
And she's just like, well, actually, you know, I don't really know much about the house, except they didn't really try very hard to sell it to anybody.
Yeah.
I've only been with them a year, so they won't tell me anything.
Yeah, and she mentions that nobody's been in this house for like 12 years or something, you know, and the fact that, like, when they're walking around the house, there's still stuff in there. And I'm like, so I get the feeling that whoever was last in here left in a hurry.
Yeah. And it's about 12 minutes into the film where we get our first kind of spooky moment, where the first thing he really notices in the house is this grand piano, and he starts playing it, and one of the keys is dead. And of course, as he walks out of the room, camera zooms all the way up in onto that key as it's sustained, as the camera then shows the wide shot again.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's something else in here.
There's something else. And we just follow John, you know, George C. Scott in the house. Like, we do see, like I said, go to college and do work, you know, and go and talk to Claire about things going on in the house, like, you know, getting the gardener in, you know, getting a maid in, because the Historical Society is funded by Senator Joe Carmichael, and he's putting money into keeping the house kind of going. You know, nobody lives there, so they're just going to pay money to keep it clean, keep it tidy. And now they've got, you know, this musician in there. It's all good. But yeah, like, you get that really ominous moment where he's sat there and he's playing the music, and you just watch the door slowly open. I mean, it's an old tropey trick.
Of course.
But I was sat there in my front room with my headphones on, and I just happened to turn behind me to look at my door into my living room, and I was sitting there going, was that closed when I walked in? Did I open it? I'm just going to keep watching the TV.
Yeah. And I mean, that's only the beginning, really, of the supernatural stuff. And it is all the most basics, which I kind of appreciate. Like, at 6 o'clock in the morning, we get the close-up of the clock, and then we hear the loud banging in the house. And it happens again on the next morning. And he's talking to the janitor, and the janitor's just like, it's an old house.
Yeah.
Old houses make noises. You're just a stranger in it.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about.
Just go get... I'm like, that's not normal noises. That's something fucking banging.
Right.
You know, I don't
But he was
know.
like, it's rhythmic. It's like there's no pattern. There's a pattern to it.
Yeah. And and John starts to obviously, wants to get more information from Claire as well. And you've got the Mrs. Huxley at the Historical Society. She's a bit suspicious. like they really picked a good actress to just kind of be suspicious as soon as he starts asking questions in the history of this house.
The house doesn't want people.
Yeah.
Is what she says to him, and he's just like, okay.
Yeah,
I'd love the fact that he's not really flummoxed by any of this stuff that's going on around him.
That's how badass George C. Scott is.
But I mean, exactly. I mean, part of me is like, is John Russell dealing with the aftermath of his loss of his child and wife, and maybe it's manifesting. But I'm just like, I've seen enough of these ghost demon stories to know that whatever's in this house is sensing the weakness in him, the emotional turmoil, and is drawing strength from it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the weird occurrences continue with the taps being turned on.
Oh God, yeah. He's gone out for the music opera night, and he's seen Senator Carmichael, and then he ends up coming back to the house really late, and you hear water running, and so he's walking around, and he goes into his kitchen, and there's a tap running, so he stops it, and then he can still hear water running.
Water, yeah.
So then he makes his way all the way up the stairs, and like as he's walking up the stairs, it's just getting darker and creepier, and like Gary said, the camera is working as like, it's just a camera looking at him, but you feel like something's watching him. And so then when he gets upstairs and he sees the baths running, he stops it, and then we get the first quick glimpse of this little boy ghost under the water drowning, and you're like, oh, what the fuck's that? But like that threw me for a moment, because it's not like George C. Scott, John Russell goes running screaming. He kind of backs out of the room, and his back kind of forces a fade on the camera, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah. But it's the banging that starts to really irritate him, and at one point he ends up going and it's a window that breaks
smashes,
in the attic.
Yeah.
So he goes up there and he can't figure out where this room is, and so he ends up breaking open a lock to reveal another door into a secret room that looks like it's obviously fallen into complete disrepair.
Yeah.
There's a wheelchair in there, and there's also some other items which he starts to try to piece together, like what happened in this room.
Well, he found the music box, didn't he? Which I didn't really get at first, but he explains to Claire, like, he played the tune.
He'd been practicing writing a song specifically out of nowhere, and then the tune is played on this music box, which is, predates like 50, 100 years ago.
Yeah, like 1909.
And so it's such a weird coincidence that he would be playing this tune that's on there.
Yeah.
So that causes him to further seek help, and he ends up seeing a scientist who's like, there's lots of exploration into this field, but it's that 1% of all these investigations that has that true wow factor. So he's like, we're gonna go and get a specialist. We're gonna go and see a parapsychologist, and they bring her into the house, and I was like, oh, this is it's getting exciting now.
Well, it's kind of a bit of a red herring as well, because like we're being fed the history of the house, but it only leads up to a certain date. So where at first John and Claire think they're talking to this little girl who may have died, kind of like John's actual daughter, in a crash on the road, that they find a body, and then when they bring the two seance parapsychologists into the house to be able to do the seance, they start, they ask the woman asks the question, she's writing on the paper. And what I thought was really quite interesting with this seance is, did you recognize the man doing it with his wife? Not that way. Not that way. They're doing the seance with his wife.
You know, I recognise him, but I couldn't place it. I meant to look him up.
Well, the guy, I looked it up. It was Eric Christmas who played Albert Harmon, the husband to the seance lady, Leah Harmon. And Eric Christmas was the priest from Harold and Maude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I looked at I could hear the guy's voice, and I'm kind of like, I know you. I know your fucking face. And when I obviously quickly wikied it and IMDb'd it, I'm like, it's Howard and Maude. It's him. Yeah. And this whole setup's absolutely great, you know, because weirdly enough, the film had set up quite well the ball.
Yes.
So we'd seen the bouncing ball at the beginning where John had a bit of a flashback of his daughter playing with the ball. And he took the ball with him.
Yeah, he had a protective scene where he took it back and put it somewhere safe.
Yeah, and then we watch it, we hear it bouncing down the stairs towards John. So then he takes the ball and he goes out in his car and he drives to a bridge and he drops it off the bridge, kind of like a, look, I'm done, I'm releasing it. And then when he gets back, the ball bounces back down the fucking stairs. You're like, oh, okay, that's
actually the last straw for him to then go and get help.
Yeah. And then when they're there doing the seance, you know, like we said, we've got Leah Harmon just kind of writing constantly with the psychic writing thing that they do. And they just start asking questions. And it's just like, my name is Joseph. No, I'm not Cora. Yes, I need help. But it's when John listens to a taping that he's doing of the seance that you actually start to hear the ghostly voice as well.
Yeah, you get the EVP, and that's really unsettling because he does the rewind to playback over and over and over again just to really sell, you know, that he's got these voices.
Yeah,
it's great. I mean, it's all the most basic stuff, but I'm trying to think of films that are in this vein earlier than this, and I actually can.
Well, that's it. Like what you said. I can think like Amityville has moments like this, but Amityville is really more intense.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I like Amityville, but real or not, I don't know. I know this is just a film in a way, but it's more.
But it's also based on, like I said, Russell's story where he said he went into a place, found a secret room in there because of weird noises.
Yeah.
Actually ended up doing some research about an orphanage, and then ended up finding a well and finding a body underneath it. So all of that has come from a real thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you are interested, you can YouTube it. There are videos going into the original story.
Yeah.
So I do think, like, even though, you know, it's hard to believe, or like as much as I want to, you know, all of this stuff, this film does sell it to you like it's very much plausible.
Yeah.
But again, like I said earlier, I like that this thing is not outright attacking the character.
Yeah.
It's, you know, throwing a glass against the wall, it's breaking windows.
The wheelchair at the top of the stairs.
I mean, yeah, that is actually ominous as all hell. There's a scene later in the film, just to jump a bit later, there's a film where Trish Van Devere is in the house, and she gets freaked out by that wheelchair. It chases her through the house. I was like, oh my god, the developers of Silent Hill 4 clearly have seen the Changeling.
Yeah.
Goddamn wheelchairs.
Well, that's it. Like you said, I wasn't too sure if this thing was malicious or not. But then we'd seen John get the flashback of what's happened. So from what we gather, there was a really rich landowner. I think his name's Richard Carmichael. But he had a son, Joseph, who was sickly and was in a wheelchair. And the son had been left inheritance by Carmichael's granddad. Loads of money. Like, the boy would have been set for life. He wouldn't have had to do anything. But the dad wanted the money and knew that he couldn't get the inheritance from him. So he intentionally drowns his son. And I mean, it's a hell of a terrifying shot. Just seeing this little boy sat in the bath, you know, can't really move or anything. And the dad comes in, grabs his legs and just yanks them out. So the boy's submerged and then just holds them there until the boy's dead.
It's also the constant banging that we've been hearing throughout the film on the side of the tub as the kid is struggling. And it's a pretty brutal scene and hard to watch. But so we immediately know then that the ghost of the house is this little boy. The plot thickens as we find out that Carmichael was also funding an orphanage. And ended up the same day he'd got rid of his child and bunged his body in a well and buried it. Adopted a boy similar size and build and age to his son, took him to Europe, brought him back and went, mystery miracle cure, he can walk now. He can walk, And of course would get the inheritance, and then the rich family would basically get away with it. And did get away with it for, over 50 years, which leads John Russell to try now to find out where the boy's body was actually buried. He sees somebody in the archives and the records who points out, there's a well on this map, but then we cut to 40 years later and the well's gone now. But there's a house there.
There's a house there. I was like, hey, Ring, did you steal an idea?
Right? That's exactly what I thought. There's a ghost in the well? What?
I got to bring Melvyn Douglas, who was playing the son, grown-up Senator Carmichael. And, he's a really old actor. I haven't seen a lot that he was in when he was younger, but he really gave off this presence. I mean, at first I was like, that can't be the dad. He'd be fucking 150 years old. And then obviously you start to piece together he's the adopted child who's grown up and taken his fortune and turned it into a massive business. He's a senator. He's got his finger in loads of pies, including the Historical Society, taking care of the house, but what's really good and kind of spoilers, he doesn't know.
Right.
And so,
or does he know, or does he suspect?
Did he have feelings, that something was just off or not? Because he did actually say he loved his dad. His dad loved him, or maybe just loved the money. But I just felt, like I said, for a movie that relies a lot on, script, acting, delivering the lines, camera work. He did really well to have this character there for George C. Scott to go up against.
Absolutely, yeah. Now he does end up getting into contact with the lady that owns the house that's now over where the well was.
Yes,
and she's like, I'm almost convinced, because when was it you did the seance? 3 days ago? Because 3 days ago my daughter had a horrific nightmare about a boy trying to get up through the floorboards. She's like, oh. But she's like, you know what? I'll think about it, because I know what you want to do is come in here with chainsaws and dig up the whole house to find this well, which may or may not be there. So, nah. But the next night, the daughter ends up being pulled out of the bedroom, walking into the room above the well, sees the boy drowning in the well.
Yeah, when she got up, I was like, is she possessed? Is she going to start digging the floor up? And then...
She's been lured,
Yeah, when the camera changed and you just see the boy underneath the water and she starts screaming, I'd be like, I'm fucking screaming too!
But then we're in there. Floorboards being ripped up, digging out the well, pulling up the soil, and it's not long before he finds the skeletal remains.
Yeah, which he's not fazed by.
Of course, he's just like, there's a hand down here.
There's a hand down here.
Yeah. He knew it was going to be there. He knew. But he was also really trying to appease the spirit that's back at the house that he's staying at. But I also thought it was interesting that the spirit was able to be at both locations, both where its remains were and where it actually was murdered.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was unsure if the ghost had caused the accident at the beginning.
There is a part of me that thought that too, because there is obviously the boy lost his life, but lost his family, and in that sense, and of course he lost his family as well. But there was also the fact that we saw we saw the vision of his daughter that dropped the ball, which of course the ghost would drop the ball. So I was like, there's a couple of links. I was just like, I think they're coincidences, but film...
It made me think, because of the music thing as well. How did he know the tune and before he found the music box? And like you said, with certain ghosts, they're stuck in one spot, where this ghost is, on his body in the well,
the bridge to get the ball
back.
back.
The bridge to get the ball. It's in the house. It fucking kills a guy in a car later on. We don't even see.
Guys, Baltar.
So they get the body up, and they actually call the police. And the police take the body away, and they question John, and they're like, "What do you know? Do you know who this is?" And John's like, no. You know, and they're like, really? And he's like, how did you know it was here? He's like, guess, you know. But he knows that, John knows that he can't really prove anything until he gets the medallion. Now, this medallion that the little boy was wearing is like proof that he was, you know, part of the Carmichael family. So John goes back into the house at night when nobody's there, and he just starts, you know, trying to dig for it. And then we watch that kind of really cool shot of
the reverse motion.
Yeah, of it coming out, like the ghost is like, here, I've got it for you. You need to take my medallion back. And so he takes it to Senator Carmichael, and he's waving it, and Carmichael just thinks he's absolutely insane. But he's questioning, hang on a minute, how has he got another medallion like mine? You know, because there only really should be one family heirloom. And that's when Carmichael gets in contact with Captain DeWitt, played by Gaius Baltar from Battlestar Galactica, John Colicus, who are like, can that guy ever not be evil?
Never.
Like he's Korg from fucking Star Trek. He's one of the original fucking Klingons. And the way DeWitt and George C. Scott go against each other, it's such a good scene where he's just like, so you want me to bring all my detectives round here to tear this house apart? And, you know, George C. Scott's like, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, the senator thinks he's about to be blackmailed.
Yeah.
Because like some story might come out that will smirch his name.
Yeah.
And so he sent his goon after to basically scare him off and get the medallion back. But he's just like, nah, leave. Like, raid the house. Do whatever you got to do. And of course then Claire Norman comes back to the house and she's like, I've just been fired, what the hell have you been doing?
Yeah.
Oh, Gaius is here.
Where's the Cylons?
Baltar's like, well fine, I'm going to go get the police and I'll be right back. And literally like a scene later we cut to John Russell, who walks past his mirror, which shatters in front of him. And then we get the call and we get the scene on the side of the road where Captain DeWitt's car is upside down with a hole punched right through it. And he's dead. It's just like, oh damn.
And Claire's just like, there's no other cars and it's upside down. Like
well, maybe this ghost is pretty damn violent. It's just killed somebody.
Malicious as fuck. But then we get, obviously, John, he gets called to Carmichael's house. Carmichael has come home, realises DeWitt is dead. He's a bit freaked out. So he gets John to come round and like you said, he just says to him, like, look, you want to fucking blackmail me. How much money do you want? And it was really nice that, like, John Russell, George C. Scott is kind of like, that's not what I'm here for. Like, I'm here to deliver this medallion back, you know. And they have that back and forth. Like, John says to him, like, I know he killed this little boy. And Carmichael's just like, no, my dad, you know, he was great. He was, you know, was really emoting about how dare you besmirch my dad's name. But as the audience, you're like, we fucking know he killed him. So we just need, and you kind of are starting to get suspicious about it as well. And so John leaves him with the medallion and goes off, and you got that horrible picture of the dad on the table, like eyes might as well have been fucking moving back and forth. That's how evil that picture is. But Claire's gone to the house, and they've done a little bit of an Amityville thing where the light turns on,
and the doors open.
Yeah, and so she's like there, and she gets lured into the house. And this is where I was like, okay, so the ghost is now being malicious to people.
It slammed all the doors on John earlier, and John was like, look, I've dug up, your remains have been dug up, like the medallion's been given back, like what do you want from me?
Well, that's it, I started to question, like, if it can do all this, like, did it need to be released to be doing all this? Or could it have done all this anyway? It just waited? Like, why not make Carmichael's plane crash?
Right. If it really wants some revenge.
Yeah. Or does it, you know, is it going to be appeased once it's been buried and it's found it's had its name cleared and all this? It's like, fuck me, ghost. Seriously?
It's got a checklist of wants, right? And if it doesn't, it's going to wheel that wheelchair around the house until it gets you.
Yeah. But luckily, John returns in time and saves Claire and pulls her out, and then he goes back into the house.
A bit of trivia. Did you know the two of these were actually married at this point in time?
Really?
Yeah, I think they'd also appeared in like 6 films together as well.
I wondered why there just seemed to be some real chemistry between Claire and George C. Scott. But
there was also a moment in the film where I think Trish calls George by his real name George in the film when they're having a bit of an argument and she's turned up crying.
Right.
And when she steps away, I'm pretty sure she calls John George obviously because of their familial relationship.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
but then John and George sound so similar. I couldn't tell.
Yeah. And so John, goes back into the house, and he's...
Sorry, just one more
Okay,
bit of
right.
trivia for you. Did you know that the whole front of that house is a complete facade?
I did.
It's a complete fake. It's actually, the whole house itself is a set.
Yeah.
What they did was just put like this Victorian Gothic front on this house, and it paints a pretty good picture.
I mean, it was multiple sets as well where they were going, and it did flow. You felt like you were just in one big house. Like, dimension wise, I was questioning, like, Jesus Christ, how big are these rooms next to the kitchen and the bathrooms, and how many bedrooms you're in, because you only see so much. But what you do see works, sets the house as a haunted house. And then, like I said, John saved Claire. He's gone back inside the house to confront Joseph. He's told him, like, I've done everything you want. And you get the wind blowing and the slow motion of George C. Scott trying to go upstairs. But at the same time, we cut back to Carmichael, who's at his desk, looking at his dad's picture, kind of shaking the desk. And
I think the desk is like the amulet,
the
the whole
ghost
room
is,
shaking.
yeah. And he sees the vision that we'd seen earlier as well of the little boy being drowned, and so he realizes it's real. And we see George C. Scott get knocked off the banister and hit the ground floor.
Chandelier shaking.
shaking.
Fire starts down the banister stairs.
Yeah, but you get that really great shot as well of Carmichael being there, or like just spiritual presence of Carmichael walking up the stairs as the fire's going. So then the stairs crash. He walks up to the attic, and then he walks into the room, and then he sees the ghost there, and the room just fucking
explodes.
The
whole house goes up.
fucking whole house goes up, and Carmichael's actually still at home and dies of a heart attack.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing with the edits, but that's basically it.
Yeah, it was, but I got it. Like, I got that he...
It was the fact that as well that that John and Claire are right at Carmichael's house, like immediately afterwards.
Yeah. Well, once they've come out and the house is burning down, they're dropping down. I think George would have said to her, like, "Look, we need to go to Carmichael's because I've just seen a vision of him.
Yeah,
we need to see what's going on."
And we see him getting wheeled out into the ambulance.
Yeah, and he's dead. And then, the next morning they're kind of driving away, and they drive past the ruins of the house, and you get the old tropiness of the camera coming down, seeing the wheelchair, seeing the musical box. But it's kind of nice. The music box kind of opens, and instead of being the evil, ominous presence, it's just the lullaby playing.
Well, it's the same tune, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I was like, so is the boy's spirit still here?
That's what I was like.
It still can't leave.
Is he appeased? Yeah. Is he just like, ha, I've killed them all, now I can play with my music box?
Yeah. I'm so confused. I'm like, because that should have sent the spirit to the light or appeased it. I don't know.
Should it? I mean, this film didn't actually, do the usual. Like,
it didn't go into the light.
Yeah, like Poltergeist have done it. And Amityville's got a priest involved. Like, why didn't he bring a priest back and just bless the house?
Well, it also means, like, if the spirit is still there playing the music box, then John's misery with this ghost is not going to be over, because it's going to turn up at his place wherever he goes next.
Yeah, or it's just stuck in the music box, and the music box is...
Maybe it's the last song it's playing before its body actually gets buried, and then...
It's crazy, though, you said that Claire and John had that relationship, because as they drove off, I was kind of happy they got together.
Yeah, right.
That he would be happy, maybe start another family.
Yeah,
funky.
Well, Iain, what were your favourite scenes from The Changeling?
I had a few. I mean, I really loved that opening sequence, even though, like, it was brief, it was quick, we only get to see Joan Marsh for a little bit. It really just fucking hit home. It sent the level of the movie, like, here. You've just seen a mum and daughter get absolutely smashed. They ain't getting up. And so now you're travelling with George C. Scott, through his turmoil, which, if you're experienced with supernatural films and stuff like that, like 1408, the ghost does that same thing as well. It just kind of latches on, and then, is he crazy? Is he just overthinking his family? But then you actually see the evidence for yourself, and you're like, no, there's fucking something here. I really like the shot of George C. Scott. I know he wasn't really playing the piano, but
actually, the actor went and learnt to play the piano
for
the movie.
Fuck yeah, George! It's when he sat there playing and he's smoking a cigarette at the same time, like. I was like, man, like if he's really fucking playing that, he's a badass fucking piano player. Yeah, George, my boy George. I like the sequence where he's looking at the photos of his family. Like, it really did surprise me that he's only got those shots of Jean Marsh and Adora from like the beginning.
Right.
Like, they don't have like in baby shots, you know, or Christmas shots. It's literally just them. Like the director was like, we need family shots. But then it was the ball bouncing down the stairs, you know, and then him taking the ball out to the bridge and dropping it. And I watched him drop it, and I'm like, that motherfucker coming back.
Oh yeah, exactly. We know. I mean, we know.
And then when it dropped back down again, I was like, oh god. Same when Claire looked up the stairs and she was all upset, and the wheelchair was just sat up the stairs. Like, you know, I want to say the ending was pretty good, but like I felt like that was the third act they needed to kind of fit in. They needed an action impact ending to get the audience, because the rest of the film had been a bit slow.
Oh yeah,
being a bit of a build up. So they needed something intense to get you. So a wheelchair chasing Claire down fucking corridors, that'll do it. And the vision of DeWitt, like Gaius Baltar. I love a bit of Gaius Baltar, and it's a shame he died. But that stare from his window, like whatever he saw, fucking killed him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this film's got some really good memorable moments. Again, I'm gonna support you on the opening scene. It sets everything up. You know, it's a real gut punch to watch that tragedy happen. But then George C. Scott really sells you on that loss throughout the first third of this film.
Yeah.
So yeah, very impactful scene. The house doesn't want people. Just like when she says that with such authority, you're just like, yeah, she's probably telling the truth.
She might as well have just said, get out.
Right, exactly. So those moments in films, always love those, and this one was great. The bouncing ball scene, that's it, bouncing down the stairs. It is so ominous. It is so creepy. It's the long shot, you know. It's not quick edits and cuts. The slow drive out there, the throwing of the ball, the coming back, it bouncing down wet down the stairs. It's just like, that's awesome. Like, even though you know it's coming, like just watching it play out is very effective. One last bit of trivia for you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just because the film's called The Changeling.
Yes.
But changelings are actually from like European folklore. And it's usually describing or referring to like a troll or a fairy or an elf.
Yeah.
Their offspring basically being swapped in the placement of a human child.
Ah.
That's usually a changeling or the swapped child. So the film's title, I thought, yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Well, I thought like all the way through the movie, I was just like, right, I don't actually understand what this changeling title. You might as well call it Haunted House.
Because the boy that was adopted is the changeling.
True.
Yeah.
But that it was when George C. Scott delivers that line at the end, and he just goes, "You're the changeling." I'm like, boom! Title drop.
Yeah. Well, let's have a quick ghostly recap.
Okay.
Shall we?
Yeah.
First up, we have the piano key. Then we have banging noises, opening doors, taps running, more taps running, ghost image in the bathwater, windows breaking, more banging, ball bouncing down the stairs, teleports back and bounces down the stairs. The seance with ghost writing, glass breaking, EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, the wheelchair at the top of the stairs, the ghost in the well, the doors banging, the mirror breaking, the chandelier shaking, the house burning, the room exploding, the music box playing by itself. Well, Iain, do you recommend The Changeling?
I do, but if I'd watched this when I was younger like Gary, I probably wouldn't have appreciated it as much as I do now. I think through my experience of watching all manner of horrors, all different styles, you know, the good, the bad, the fucking really boring and shit. This is just one of those well-made scary movies. Like, I'm not telling you to rush out and watch it straight away. What I'm saying is if you have, like, what was it? It was an hour and 40 or hour and 45 minutes. And I thought it was going to drag. I really did. But by about the 50-minute mark, I was invested. I was like, I was building up investment. Once I got to the 50-minute mark, I'm like, I don't care how long this movie is. I need to see it towards the end. I got the ominous feeling, the creepiness, you know. So if you can get a version of this film, a copy of it or whatever, you know, sit quietly, turn the lights down. you know, and just let the movie kind of wash over you. Because even like when you watch the words, the credits appear at the beginning, I kind of got the Exorcist feeling. You know, knowing George C. Scott is an Exorcist free, that makes it even better. You know, I like Amityville, but man, this house was pretty damn fucking scary with just George in there on his own. Yeah, the ghost, some people might say he could do more, but man, that little girl, she was fucking terrified.
I'm highly recommending The Changeling, as I found it to be a really well-crafted mystery ghost thriller with plenty of suspense and scares. If you like haunted house horror movies, this one has all the tropes and cliches, with the banging noises and doors slamming, etc., but the haunting parts are well spaced out, effective, creepy, and unsettling, and they're not overused or simply there to create jump scares. George C. Scott does a fantastic job in the lead role. He sells the trauma and the heartache of his loss. He controls the screen well with his presence, and I found it very refreshing to watch, well, a haunted house film where the protagonist wasn't scared easily,
Yeah.
and he remained pretty rational and logical throughout. The narrative and mystery was compelling. You'll want to find out who the ghost is and what the changeling wants. It's a good little ghost story without any monstrous demons that dominate this genre.
Yeah.
The cinematography was decent. The ghost POV shots were unsettling, along with the film's score. You know, the music by Rick Wilkins, though, I did find it a bit mixed. Often or not, it was understated, and it was really chilling, and then other times it was just too loud and over the top and distracting. For me, less was more in this film's instance. I passed on this film in my teen years as boring ghost film. Now I really appreciate this very simple and effective ghost story, and hope more horror fans check out this cult classic. An experience beyond total fear. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.